What's up, guys? It's another week of the podcast. On tonight's show, we are talking about student athletes. Yeah, that's right. It's National Student Athlete Day as we're recording this. So you're going to hear all about some great student athletes this week as you're listening to the episode. We're going to talk about our favorite players coming up while we were growing up, our favorite players while we were in college, and then some of our favorite interviews on this show. That's what's on tonight's episode.
We've also got a big meeting this weekend in the sports world, but somebody wasn't at the table. We'll tell you who.
Roll it. On the show tonight, we've got
every night was a battle.
You can lock this in, take it to the bank.
No class at all. It's unbelievable.
They should see a relatively quick turnaround.
Show me the money.
Big water slides, snow cone truck and everything.
One team stands alone.
Well, you know what I think about Troy.
I'm losing my mind over here.
We've got the moment you've all been waiting for.
Of course.
What's up, y'all? It is week 2 of video podcasting with my boy Thomas. I'm Colin. We're the Bench Boys. Thank you for tuning in again. If you have tuned in, thank you already for coming back. If you haven't, guess what? We're here, YouTube. That little subscribe button, it's like right there or there or there or there. Who doesn't know? Just hit the subscribe button so you can see our stuff for the rest of the week and for the weeks on end. So, Thomas, we got a lot to talk about tonight.
We really do. It is National Student Athlete Day, this day of this recording. We'll get to that in a minute, but first, you know the drill. We're also on social media at the OG Bench Boys. Follow us. Tell your friends. He actually covered a lot of the bases already. So we also got the big sports meeting this weekend. We'll talk more about that in a little bit, but let's go ahead and get on out the gate.
Out of the gate.
That's right. It is National Student Athlete Day as we're recording this. So what we're doing, we're talking about some student athletes because let me tell you something. There's millions of them out there that have put a lot of time, a lot of blood, a lot of sweat, a lot of tears, everything, money, everything into these sports just to have a career. And some of them, a lot of them don't go pro, but there's a lot of them that are legends in the collegiate realm of their respective sports. And we're going to highlight a couple that we thought, some that, our opinions on some of the ones that we enjoyed the most watching, who was our favorite. And to be honest with you, I'm just going to get into it. When my list actually has changed, like if you would have asked me 10 years ago while I was in either high school, like growing up, or in college, I think these 4 guys wouldn't have been on my list at that time. But now going back to it, like I'm a little bit older, I think about just how much fun it was to watch these guys on the field, no matter who they played for. It was awesome to watch these guys play. And so that's a lot of factors, the entertainment value that they brought, the passion they brought to the game. That was kind of like some of my, credentials, just the amount of respect that I think these guys, deserve. And then how these guys handle themselves on and off the field. You're going to notice a stark contrast in 2 of them. But just it's just the different ways that they, turned, I guess, the college football world. That was the other thing I noticed. All of them were football players. I thought about a couple of basketball guys, but they just didn't live up to these guys. So, Thomas, I didn't know, did you have any other criteria that kind of you judged your guys to how you kind of broke them down?
So I just kind of stuck to the 4 categories, and I instinctively picked football too, just because that's the sport that means the most to me. But that was part of the criteria. One of them was I think you might have said player that we watched in college. Well, I just kind of did a group of 5 player period. I did a player I watched growing up, a group of 5 player that wasn't necessarily the same year, but it was somebody who means a lot, just to me sentimentally. The theme through mine is just kind of what they meant to me, and we'll get into that. So do you want to start with the number 1 GOAT in our books?
Yeah, greatest of all time. I don't know if I'd give him that. It was just somebody that grabbed college football by its horns, basically, and he did it in a different way than what we've seen. And to me, I could not stand this guy when he was actually in college. Like I was never a fan of him, but now like after all of it, after seeing what he did, I'm like, man, this guy was great for the game of football, specifically the game of college football. I mean, he brought so much attention to it, and he did it for the right reasons. Now you're going to see my next guy might not have done it for the right reasons, but my first guy is going to be Tim Tebow. And I know that might be a shock for you. It is for me. Like I was never a fan of Tim Tebow in college. Like he's from Florida. He went to University of Florida. He was with Urban Meyer. Like I'm gonna admit I rooted for him to lose. I just couldn't stand him. But now like going back and I see what he did for the game, and I see like he really was like it wasn't an act. Like that's the type of guy Tim Tebow is. And even in the NFL, I kind of rooted against him. But then, like when he went to Denver, and I mean, he really did try to be an NFL quarterback. He didn't give up on what he thought he was. And so, I mean, I just every weekend when he was playing at Florida, though, and we're going back to his college days. Every weekend when he played at Florida, I mean, they were the number one team in the country. I mean, and up until they lost to Alabama in the SEC championship, but he was, I mean, the amount of grit that guy showed, there's very few people that I think are in the same realm of just the passion they put into the sport and how they showed it. And he did it in a right way. He did it a good way. He just was a good player on and off the field, didn't get in trouble, kept his mind right, kept his nose straight. I mean, just a guy that you really want to, I mean, they built a statue in his name because he won a Heisman, but that's a kid that you would want to show your son or any young kid playing football. This is what it really means like to be a team player. This is what it really means like to be a guy that's a leader on and off the field. And I really think Tim Tebow really just displayed all of those attributes that you need to be as a leader. And that's really why I picked him as just one of my favorite guys just to watch. I mean, he was just, the speech, I mean, just the way he played. I mean, he ran over guys. I mean, he was basically a tight end playing quarterback, and it was just fun. It was really, and he had athletes all around him at Florida, and it was just really fun. And now 10 years, basically, it was about 10 years now. I mean, I think he graduated in 2009, 2010ish. To see him now, what he's doing with his life, and then to go back and look at the game, it's really fun to watch him play. I think at the collegiate level. What do you got?
And I agree with that. I don't know how I'm going to follow it up, but I'm going to stick around the Heisman house for my follow-up. My GOAT is actually in the running campaign for greatest of all time. Bo Jackson is who I got to go with. He wasn't necessarily he wasn't the field commander. He wasn't the general. He wasn't making speeches, but the man is just an athletic talent. Like, you think of the greatest athletes of the 80s, he is always in the conversation. You cannot talk about football or baseball players in the 80s and 90s and not talk about Bo Jackson. Like, it's just impossible. He was so powerful and athletic that he literally reattached his own hip joint, in the span of getting tackled and then getting back up. Like, that's what ended his football career, was that. And just the records he set at Auburn, the skill he had, the way that he continued it even at the pro level, just the way that he won. He found a way to win, and he was just that gifted to do that. I gotta go with Bo Jackson. I don't have as much of a speech to talk about him, but
I don't think he needs a speech. I mean, it's Bo Jackson. It's Bo. I mean, the guy was, a human highlight reel basically every time he touched the football.
Yeah. So I mean, if we're gonna talk about if I have to go out and pick a number one player of all time, I'm gonna pick Bo Jackson. That's just me personally.
No, I think a lot of people have him, and if not number one, but definitely in that top three range of. I think there even was like a bracket at one time, the top college football players of all time, and I'm pretty sure he was like one or two in that. So I don't think you're stretching it at all to put him at number one. My second, the next category is, players that we watched in college or in high school growing up. I know Tim Tebow was my guy in high school, but in college, this is a guy that stark contrast to Tim Tebow off the field. Still an amazing player to watch on the field, and he was also a Heisman winner. Didn't pan out in the NFL as what a lot of people kind of predicted, but no, it was Johnny Manziel. I mean, Johnny Manziel was, I think, the first rendition of a quarterback that is not your atypical style. I mean, he was small. He didn't have a cannon for an arm, but he just made plays. Like, that's just what he was. And the climactic image of Johnny Manziel to me is when Texas A&M was playing Alabama, and he just made plays. He made Alabama look out of place, and we don't see that. You don't see Alabama look out of place, especially at that time. That was in the middle of. I mean, they haven't gone anywhere. I'm not saying that by any means, but that was. I mean, if you go back and look at the defenses that he played those 2 years, those were loaded defenses. I mean, loaded defenses, and he made them look out of place.
At Auburn and LSU too. They were incredible.
It wasn't just them. I mean, everybody. He just made everybody look like they were still in high school playing again, because it looked like he was playing backyard football, and just the way he did things. I mean, and he was a guy that, just like how I kind of talked about Tim Tebow, when he played on Saturdays, he was ESPN's, he was Sports Center's, he was College Game Days. That was who they were talking about in their A block, to so-called, because he was the guy. I mean, everybody wanted to see what that kid was doing at night when they led off with their highlights. A&M was that team that they were talking about. That's what he was. And then obviously his off the field life was, I mean, just like an MTV show. It could have been that, I feel like. Even now, I think it's still, I mean, he's calmed down a little bit, and it transitioned into him winning a Heisman, which was incredible at the time. He was one of the first underclassmen to ever win a Heisman, ever. And so that was a huge thing. He was going up against, seniors that a lot of people were wondering, are it's such a, I don't want to call it a cult, but it's such an illustrious group of people that they aren't going to just offer in this, young underclassman 1 year type dude. That's not how it was. And that really flipped the script on what we saw as Heisman campaigns. And I really believe it was a season like what Johnny Manziel had that really pushed the transfer or really pushed, the one good season. If you just go out there and if you show out, it doesn't matter what you've done before. It doesn't matter what you're going to do in the past. It's that one season. And that really put a lot of, I think, emphasis on that. And it's what Johnny Manziel did. So I think he was just an exciting player to watch in college football, just because, I mean, I still picture him moving, like running around in circles at one point and just making guys look like they're playing on JV teams. That's what they looked like, just undisciplined. And for him to do that to a bunch of really good teams in the SEC, I think that says a lot for him. So that's who I'd pick just watching.
Well, it's interesting that you brought up the whole Heisman underclassmen thing, because that really got started with your first guy, Tim Tebow, the first sophomore to win the Heisman ever.
Yeah.
So
I think Johnny was a freshman or something like that, like a redshirt freshman.
Yeah, something like that.
That's what I meant.
If we're talking about players we watched growing up, I got to go back further than college or high school. I had to go all the way back to elementary school, because I think, oddly enough, the player that got me into college football, and obviously by my second pick being from Auburn, you're going to know what team I watched growing up. But Jason Campbell was my guy growing up.
Okay.
Like, it wasn't Ronnie Brown. It wasn't Cadillac Williams. It wasn't any of those wide receivers or any of the other. He was my favorite player from Auburn growing up. Even after he left, that was the guy that I wanted to be. That was when I had dreams of playing football, that was who I wanted to be. And he was never the guy running around making plays. He was I hate to use the word prototypical, but he was the quarterback. He sat in the pocket. He only scrambled if he had to, but he made plays, he made throws, he adjusted. And I even tried to follow him in the NFL. That didn't exactly pan out, but the impact that just he left on me made me into the college football fan I am. So it's less about what he necessarily did, but what I took out of it.
Definitely. No, I mean, I know a lot of Auburn fans that, I mean, he's obviously in probably a lot of top tens for them just because of that team. Obviously, I think, what was it, 2004? That was the Herald, undefeated. We should have had our shot against Oklahoma, type team that he was on, I'm pretty sure. So, no, and he's done a lot after, too. So he's definitely
it isn't to say he wasn't unsuccessful. He just bounced around the league a lot.
Yeah.
And ended up in Oakland at one point. So,
next category, run through it real quick. Just favorite group of five player that we had. Mine was actually when I was at Troy, and that gives away he was a Troy player. But I don't think I've seen. We've had some people that come close. Damian Willis comes close to this guy, but just a guy that was just better than everybody on the field every game. Damian Willis was really close to that, and that he was my second guy. But this guy, I got to go with Eric Thomas. And Eric Thomas, wide receiver for Troy, he was one of those guys, too, that just had an unbelievable season as well. And I just remember him, anytime you threw him the ball, he was going to come down with that ball. And I remember the South Alabama game when South came up to Troy, and literally, I mean, South was looking at beating Troy in Troy, and with maybe under a minute left to go, you get a fade pass from Corey Robinson, and he's covered by a former guest, a guest of the show, Mr. Jeremy Reeves himself, and another guy, and he comes down with it. I mean, just rips it out. I mean, and everyone knew where that ball was going because I think it was on third down. Everybody knew where that ball was going, and they still couldn't stop him. And he did that just every single game, it felt like. And then just getting to see him in person while we were there, I think that was the other just kind of surreal thing, is just getting to see a guy like him. So Eric Thomas has got to be my pick for wide receiver.
I was really thinking about that because we were talking about players we watched in college, and if I had to pick a player I watched in college, he's up there. It's either him or Brandon Burks. But no, I could go all day and talk about just the impact that his performance had on the rivalry that we have. That moment, that catch, that game-winning catch in 2013 is the moment that Troy and South became rivals. It wasn't just that South almost beat Troy in Troy. Troy was hosting them for homecoming. Mm-hmm. That was a big deal. It was a packed stadium. It was a crazy atmosphere and one of the best moments, best plays I've ever been a part of. I am going to stick with Troy for my favorite group of five player. I could go so many different ways because, I could go to somebody at the group of five level that made a big impact, like, I don't know, Derek Carr or who was the Hawaii quarterback from 2007? Colt Brennan. There are a ton of players, but I got to stay home with this one. And I'm going to go with Bear Woods because I feel like he didn't not get enough credit. He didn't not get enough playing time. He just didn't. He is exactly who he was. He was a monster at linebacker. He had the look with the dreads, still does. He's dominant up in the Canadian football leagues now. He's a character in and of himself, and he was a monster in that Troy's defense. And honestly, until Carlton Marshall came along, no offense to any of the other guys that came along, I don't think Troy had a character or somebody to look at and rally around in that linebacking core until Carlton came along. Not that he was necessarily as talented as some of the guys that came after him, but the dreads, dude. I just got to say the dreads is all it is.
The dreads, for sure. See, I mean, I'll be honest, like Bear Woods, that wasn't a guy that, I mean, I'd heard of OC and DeMarcus Ware, obviously. Those are the two big guys that, I mean, anybody's probably heard of him. Yeah. Clinton, Jarrell Jernigan. I mean, Jonathan Maxwell, all those guys. Like Bear, until I got to Troy, that's when I realized the like you were talking about, the lore of a character or of a person, and that was Bear Woods. I mean, just everyone and they're still attracted to him. I mean, he's in the Canadian Football League, and people love that guy. I mean, he is a league favorite. He's not just a team favorite or a crowd favorite. He is a league favorite. So, no, great pick there. Last one for us, wrapping this up. Favorite interview with a student athlete. We've had about a half a dozen or so. Some of them coming on twice. For me, I know it's going to be ironic, but I got to go with the South Alabama guy, Mr. Jeremy Reeves himself. Also, and an alumni of my same high school. I know that too. I'm going to throw that out there. But no, just he was so fun to come on and to talk and just the way we talked to him about a lot of stuff, you know, with the new coaches and I loved his theory or not his theory, but his, you know, perspective on the Troy South rivalry and how big it was, and just hearing him, a player, talk about the rivalry. You know, he goes, you know, I grew up with a lot of these guys, I played with a lot of these guys, and we're friends, but that Saturday it's all bets are off. And he's like, you know, I mean, it's in one of our, that's in one of our intros is, you know, what I feel about Troy. Like, I mean, that simple statement right there, that explains the rivalry. And so he was so awesome. So, I mean, smart. I mean, just a great interview. And so that he's one of my all-time, I guess, favorite interviews with athletes.
Yeah, I agree. I love talking to him too. And I love that Alyssa was able to talk to him because of the friendship she had with him. And you don't have to tell me. You don't have to tell me about the rivalry. You can't tell me enough about the rivalry. But I agree. I like the pick. Jeremy was just so much fun. And we'll have to get him back at some point.
Oh yeah.
For my pick, I'm going to take a bit of an audible here. I know I told you at one point I was going to do one person, but I'm going to actually go a different route with this. I got to say Robert Hunt from Louisiana. We talked to him at Media Days, and that video is on our Facebook page. You can go back and watch that one. He was so much fun. He was such a character, but he was so honest and so real. And it felt like I was talking with a guy I'd been friends with forever. And I feel like a part of that, it was almost like Jeremy, but Jeremy actually had connections to you and Alyssa. Mm-hmm. So the fact that this was 2 years ago or so when we talked to him.
Yeah.
He is now possibly getting his chance
at draft pick
pro level. So I got to go with Robert Hunt there, just because the character that he had too, and I guess that's part of the thing too, is just the character he was.
Yeah, I didn't even think about all the interviews that we did at Media Day. Those were all, and we interviewed Bull, we interviewed, so many fun guys at Media Days. Like, so yeah, that definitely. I mean, there's been a lot. So no, those two definitely take the cake, though. So that's our wrap on our four kind of little criteria, little sections, or however we want to call them, of, you know, just student athletes. It's National Student Athlete Day. Obviously, a lot of student athletes are without any sort of job right now. I mean, I know they're still training, they're still doing a lot of their things, but no, it's just a tough time right now. But it's an important day to realize how important student athletes are to all, you know, universities. I mean, what they bring to a university, the fact of, one, they are a student, they are there to make an education. They will go on and they will lead lives in careers that they got their education. But then that other half of that statement, the athlete part of that statement, they lead, they build your brand, they take your brand into professional levels, such as NFL, NBA, all of them, and they talk about what they got at the college that they went to. And so that, to me, is the other big part of that student athlete term. So no, it's a good day to recognize them. They should be recognized a lot more, and because a lot of them give up a lot of time, and then, you know, it's not like what the old school movies portray of you're given everything. I mean, I knew a girl that literally was a double major that graduated in 4 years with a double major. She was the president of the SAC at Troy. She woke up every morning at 4:30 in the morning and was not in bed until 9:30 because of all the classes she took from practice I mean, everything. I mean, this girl's life was incredible. I followed her around for a couple of days, did like a college story on her, and I don't know too many kids getting up at 4:30 in the morning and starting their day, and then not ending until 9:30, and that's after practice, school, tests, everything, and doing a double major and graduating in 4.5. Excuse me, it was 4.5 years. That's incredible. And now she's over in California. Arizona. Great life. She tried the professional and she was a golfer. And so just that's an incredible incredible feat. So it's not what everybody likes to draw it up as is, oh, you're on full ride, you're just sitting back and you're enjoying your life. It is a tough life to be a NCAA student athlete. So with that, we've got one little final word to talk about. A little quick final word. Is that right? Yeah?
Yeah, that works for me. Yeah.
Yeah, we got a quick final word to talk about, and we'll knock that out pretty quick.
Final word.
And our final word today, well, it's just a situation. It's what we're in right now. It's the COVID-19 pandemic. There's no sports going on. We have highlighted that plenty enough. We're trying to keep it positive. Only interesting of news note was that there was a big meeting with the president and the council, the White House council, and all of the professional leagues, NBA, NHL, NFL, WWE, NASCAR, I mean, everything. But there was one person at the table that wasn't there, and that was the NCAA. And to me, when I see every single chairman from every single league and there is no representative from the NCAA there, it's just kind of a question of why wouldn't they be there? I'm not sure why. Maybe it was scheduling. Who knows? It might have been a conference call. I don't know how you don't get on a conference call. But to me, that was a little strange that we did not see the NCAA at that meeting in particular. And but no, there's a lot of things that happened this week in the majors, in the professional realm of sports, such as the PGA, rescheduled a lot of their big majors. The Masters, which was supposed to be going on literally this week, right as the NCAA tournament ends. That's right. The NCAA tournament was supposed to be tonight of this recording. We were supposed to have the national title being played, and that is not being played at all. And then this week was supposed to be Masters. So this was supposed to be the greatest week of the year, in my opinion, as everything wraps up. And now it's not there. It's a wild, and so it's back to the point, just seeing the NCAA not at the table, very interesting. And so hopefully we kind of get some more information of why they weren't there.
We've talked the past 2 weeks about just the amount that they've lost, the amount that the NCAA has had to drop and give up because of this pandemic. And I mean, it's not anybody's fault. You don't prepare for this, but you've got so much riding on the past month that just went out the window, and you're not part of this planning meeting for the upper echelon of sports. I get you're not a pro program, but you got to get with the program.
You got to be at the table. That's basically what it just, you have to be at that table for how big of an organization you are. So that will do it for you.
Oh no, I was just gonna say right place, right time, and that leads us right back to final word, which is situation.
Yeah, definitely. So that will do it for the episode this week. Again, we're doing the video thing. It's fun. We're having a lot of fun with it. The other thing this week, we have one of our first interviews through Skype, through the video podcast that will be on YouTube. So you will be able to see it. We're also going to blast it out to all of our social media. Follow Twitter at the OG Bench Boys, Facebook at the Bench Boys as well. And then also on our Twitter is at ColinKO13, at Thomas J. Gleation on Twitter. And you'll see it there. It's a fun interview. It's got Robbie Baker on it. He's a local, as we said earlier, he's a local sports journalist here at one of the local news stations here. He talks about his life, on what has happened to his life through this pandemic.
And friend of the show, great to have him. It was a great interview. I can't wait to get into it. And then finally, it's YouTube. It's you know the drill. Like, subscribe, tell your friends, share it. He's pointing in every which direction, but and one of those directions is going to be the next video or our like button or our subscribe button. Go ahead and click it. And in the meantime,
Come on back.